First up is fixing up my old baby blanket. For some brief context, my grandma made this and gave it to me years ago. I've pretty much had him my entire life, and unfortunately, he's starting to show his age just a bit. In keeping with the spirit of her work, I'll be using the tie knot technique to requilt the entire blanket. For those of you unfamiliar with it, this is one of the easiest techniques to use for quilting, where a series of yarns, threads, or ribbons are used to hold the blanket together. The materials you choose to use for this technique will depend on the recipient of the quilt. For example, if the quilt is being given to a small child and will receive a lot of wear and tear as a result, I would recommend using more inexpensive yarns. But for decorative quilt patterns, ribbons can be a great way to add an extra touch of pop in the final look. Although why anyone would make a quilt and not use it is still kind of a mystery to me. The only downside to this technique is that it can take a lot of time, especially if you're working on larger quilts. In order to compensate for this, I like to use a grid pattern when I'm placing and sewing my knots. While it can feel daunting at first, with a little bit of patience and practice, the goal should be to create continuous lengths using your yarns, ones that you can always go back and cut and tie off separately later. Once all the layers are securely in place, it's time to add the binding of the quilt. This will firmly secure all the raw edges and ideally add the final touches to the blanket. For this project, I decided to use strips of matching cotton and not traditional bias tape, simply because I don't need the extra stretch for this one. If anything, I need the pieces to be as taut as possible since Quilty here is showing his age. By the way, that's why I named my blanket years ago as a child. Quilty. I know, I was such a creative genius even then. As always, remember to run the pen slowly through your sewing machine. This will prevent your pens from bending, your needle from snapping in half, and your machine from screaming, "What on earth is wrong with you, stupid?" which mine has done many, many times. Lastly, it's time to tie off the raw edges and hide away any loose threads. What I like to do is wrap the threads together and slowly insert them through the needle, and then hide them in my binding. Slowly being the ironic word here because everything's sped up so quickly. And voila, we are officially done and have a brand new quilt. So as you can see, he's looking a lot better. Unfortunately, I don't have a before picture to show you guys. Aside from a couple of problem areas, like right down here, this coloring issue, I'm afraid there's no way I can really fix that. That just came from years of leaving the quilt in the sun on my bed. So fair reminder to everyone with a quilt, do not leave it in the sun. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!